that's when I opened my eyes. I'm like, I'm the problem. I am the problem. Shit. And that swirled in my head for another couple months until that day I sent you the email. I was literally at a house cleaning and I'm just scrubbing down the counters and I'm like, I have to apologize today. Like right now, it is ready to come out. It's like a baby that's like, I would not have been able to conjure that or force that any moment before the moment.
You're listening to Shall We Unpack This? With your host, Leilani Carrasco.
Of course, a cat's going to use a litter box right as I start recording this. Hey, everybody, welcome to the third part of this story. Thank you for your patience in the hiatus last week. Technology, I don't know, did I miss a retrograde or something? Because technology did not work for me. So this week we're covering the sudden reconciliation that my former partner Dave and I had. And it seems like suddenlies followed our entire relationship. We went from a power couple to suddenly separated. We went from an awkward friendship to suddenly engaged. And then we went from two people that were happy to never see each other again to suddenly being friends. How does that happen? For me, it was two very specific experiences. But let's go ahead and get into the interview and find out how it all happened.
There was a period when I was going through my part of the healing journey, 2017 to 2020-ish. I'd written a book about my journey and stuff, and my intention was I want to heal, I want to love myself and be at peace with myself. I want to forgive Leilani. I don't want to carry bitterness and resentment with me towards her anymore. And so when you would pop into my head, and it happened every now and then, when you pop into my head, I'd say I send her peace and I send her love and I hope that she finds whatever she's looking for. And then at one point I was like, I really hope that she's happy. I pray for you or whatever. And then I would say, but I never have to see her again. So it doesn't, whatever. And then another voice pops into my head, never say never. And
why are you playing games with me?
Well, and honestly, it was interesting that happened because I'm praying all this peace for you, but then the never say never comes in. I'm like, no, I never have to see her again. Well, if you're going to pray peace for her, dude, and you're going to send love to her, then you can't have this issue with ever running into her again. That has to be something that like either doesn't bother you at all, or you're like, cool, let's make that happen. Mm-hmm. And so like that just revealed more stuff inside of me that I hadn't looked at and needed to heal. And so fast forward in time to I was playing in a band. I was sitting down to we were getting ready for a show, and I happened to look at my phone as the guys are getting all their guitar stuff set up, and I see that I've got this email from you. And I was like,
what does she want now? Because at that point, it was like, boom, 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 boom.
Basically.
Boom, 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 boom.
Basically. And so to read this really long email from you, and you were apologizing to me and for everything. Mm-hmm. And you hadn't apologized to me since the second week of our marriage. And so I was, at least from my memory, I could be totally wrong, maybe, again.
That's the one that really stuck. I guess that memory of that apology from early in our marriage, I mean.
Yeah, you're right. It's very unfair for me to say that you never apologized at any point during it. I'm sorry, please.
Yeah.
You were taking accountability for things that, I felt had pushed onto me for a really long time. And so it was like to see this very massive shift in the way you were communicating. Like, I was like, this is a different person. And so at the very end of your email was, if you'd ever like to have coffee, I'd consider if not, that's totally cool. And I was like, wow. Well, I refinanced the house. She got some money that was due to her, but I got this check in the mail that I needed your signature on. And so I had a reason to never say never. So I replied back and was like, hey, I've got some things of yours and I need you to sign this deal. And I expected our reunion conversation to be 10 minutes, and it was 2 hours, I think.
Yeah.
And that started this thing where when we would see each other again, we would have these really long conversations that were incredibly healing, and it was like two old friends catching up after a long time. And like I remember sitting on the front porch not that long ago, and we were both just sharing from our hearts, like, about things that we had experienced from our perspective. And I remember thinking, like, I can't believe I did that to you. I'm so sorry. And you apologized to me, and like we were just like, there was no, like, I got to be careful what I'm gonna say. Like all the guards that had been up for me, and I felt like for you too. Like all the guards were down, and we're just like these two very honest, vulnerable people with nothing to try to like. Yeah,
there was no charge behind it. It was like, here's this thing, instead of like, this very emotionally charged accusation. It just was what it was. This thing happened.
It was one of the sweetest conversations of anybody, and I talked to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, you do.
I treasure that conversation.
Yeah, it just feels it's on like a blood level. It just feels like this clean, and even as we again are just talking about this process, this is not even like, people are like, well, I could not sit down with my ex-husband and have that conversation, or my ex-partner or former partner. I don't see that ever happening. That's fine. Like, that is your process.
We didn't see it happening either.
That is your process. So, I would think of you in the days following the separation, the years following the separation and divorce, and anytime you'd come up, you live in Clyde. I still had cleaning clients in Clyde, and because I was simply down the street from you, all of that would come up, and I'd be so angry, and I'd feel it here, and I'm spinning in my head, and there'd even be parts of certain houses where I'd clean there. I'm like, this is where I usually think of Dave. I'm thinking of Dave. I'm so mad right now. I'm like, that's the Dave spot. And the minute I enter it, I'm going to get mad all over again. Ruminate. So I spent a lot of time in the rumination, anger places, and it was about 6 months after I'd moved out, and I'm like, I have these 3 key points that really angered me that I play in my head over and over about what Dave said, and it's getting to the point where it's hard to carry this. It's heavy, and yes, I'm mad, but it's getting to where I want to work through this, because I know that this only... It's a glass ceiling when you carry all this bitterness, and it has to be worked out somehow, and it really is an onion peeling back the layers. And I thought, oh, the layer is gone, and then I hit a spot in a house, and I'm like, oh, this is the Dave spot. I'm mad about Dave again. But that particular night, I just kind of I was in yoga training at the time, and like learning to meditate, and I just let these memories come up, and they just like landed on my throat, and I was so like, oh gosh, and just like trying to like let them go, and it really did feel like someone was holding my throat, and they kind of passed through me, but not for the last time, but not that powerful. And it was just a continual shedding. That was, a lot of it was mental shedding. Okay, well, I know I need to move past this, but it wasn't a full body, and a lot of it did still feel tied to the house, because I didn't know when I'd see my portion of that again, and I felt like there was always this string between us, and I'm like doing all these like cord severing ceremonies with myself and not feeling anything. And so it wasn't until 2020 that I noticed my credit score dropping. I'm like, what is this? So I looked into it and saw like where my name was still on different loans, and I'm like, zoop, why is my name still on the mortgage? I thought divorce just magically erased your name from mortgages.
I don't know why it, like, dinged your credit, because I've never missed a payment.
Well, and this is another lesson for people. make sure hospitals have your recent address. They will lie to you and tell you they don't. But when I was hospitalized for a concussion, I gave them my recent address. I remember writing things down. I wasn't that concussed. And they sent my bill to my college address that I hadn't lived at for over 20 years. So when I'm waiting for like the hospital bill, it never came, so they sent it right to collections, and that's why my credit score was dropping, because there was this bill out there. I had no idea it had my name on it. And so that, but it led me to realizing my name is not magically taken off the mortgage because of a divorce. And then I turned into the crazy horse again. I'm like, he's gonna run my credit into the ground. It just ring-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding. Because I tend to do a lot of comparison, and I'm like, in normal situations with divorce, that is what happens. I mean, my family has had situations where the ex didn't pay a utility bill and left all these charges for the wife to, so I just already heard all of these stories. And that was pretty much most of our marriage too, was I have this backlog of men that have done bad things, and now it's all your fault. And you have to convince me that you are not any of these men, but good luck, because I assume that any minute you're going to turn into these men. So good luck. Go. Congratulations. Yeah. And I had a chip on my shoulder with men, and that is something that will not get resolved unless you sit with it. So when that whole process finished and the house thing was done and it's fully in your name, it did feel like at that point I was safe to release. As petty as that sounds, it was like, okay, well, at least that is done. And then there was room for me at the coinciding time. I was listening to the book Codependent No More. When she listed traits of a codependent, I was like, oh my God, I've done all of these things. I'm hypervigilant, and people have to walk on eggshells around me because I'm very fragile, and I put all of my self-worth into these things, and it was so overwhelming that I ran to the bathroom and just heaved. I didn't have anything come up, but it was like I felt like I needed to give 3 big heaves into the toilet to like, I don't look at what it has done to my life. Our marriage was a blessing still because we learned in a way to grow up together. But I was like, I made so many huge life choices out of all of this crap. And that's when I opened my eyes. I'm like, I'm the problem. I am the problem. Shit. And that swirled in my head for another couple months until that day I sent you the email. I was literally at a house cleaning, and I'm just scrubbing down the counters, and I'm like, I have to apologize today. Like right now, it is ready to come out. It's like a baby that's like, I would not have been able to conjure that or force that any moment before the moment. So I think about me laying on the floor 3 years earlier, feeling the tightness of my throat. I was not ready then. And to force myself, it would have been phony. But when it was ready to come out, I'm like, I like to write, and I like to make everything sound perfect. I almost don't want to write this email because I'm going to get in my way, and it's not going to be good enough, and I'm going to erase everything. So I'm like, fuck it. I've learned at this point how to connect with my heart and just speak from my heart, and whatever comes out. And so it was just like, I'm going to tap into my heart, and this is what my heart says, and try not to get too in my head. And then, yeah, that looks cool. Okay, send. And then it was just like, oh, okay, that's done. Next. And I just cleaned the rest of the house. It was no big grand thing. And so much of my life and my spiritual life when we met was feeling like I needed to conjure all this big emotion and like light a candle or all this ceremony. It was so easy and not fluffy, but just pure. And it just was like awesome. And that's what led to our meeting in May of 21. So yeah, I was of the mindset too that I'm like, I don't mind holding a grudge. We will never talk to each other again. And woo, very dramatic. But yeah, I did not expect that either. Another way we connected was the snowpocalypse that hit us in 2021, later on that year. So we met in May, and then winter happened. Winter tried to kill us. So at that time, Clyde still had water and electricity. A friend offered very graciously to take me in his 4-wheel drive truck to Clyde so I could weather out the storm safely. And I stayed with my dear friends, and as I was there and as the snow started to melt those last few days of that storm, it was like 4 days of no water and electricity. It was crazy. I was in the little guest house, and the light came from the western window into the bedroom. And I'm like, for a minute there, I forgot to be angry. And I'm like, this light feels a lot like the light that would come into our screened-in kind of porch area that we would call the rumpus room. I don't know why, it just happened that way.
Still call it
Still
that.
The rumpus room.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that light, even though it was cold and it was February, it was very reminiscent of the springtime coming, and how like the chill in the air is different in the spring. And there were some beautiful moments sitting out in that rumpus room, and the light, the way it would shift in the house throughout the year, and especially during the spring. And I had a moment with that where I was like, but there's nothing good about that part of my life. I don't want to receive any of it. I ran away from it for a reason. None of it was good. Like, I don't want to receive any of this. But I couldn't deny that that was good. That was good times. There was still that, like, I don't want to admit that was ever a good decision or a good time in my life, because that would just break the universe, because then that means I wasn't supposed to do that, and then what am I doing with my life? But it was like, no, I can enjoy this light coming through the western window and remember the light coming through our windows and call it good. And that was like, I think that takes a level of courage I didn't realize I needed to have. It's like everyone talks about you need to forgive and you need to reconcile, but then no one tells you also how kind of like you're so used to holding these things, and when it's time to release, you're like, what am I doing? Is this safe? I guess this is natural. This is good. Keep going. Yeah. So that's how.
So was that the day you sent me the random text message that was like, hey, can I come see the house one more time?
Yeah, no, that was in February. It took me that long to wrestle with, that part of my life was good. There were good things. And it wasn't until July that I'm just, again, randomly cleaning a house, and it was like, I want to see the house today. Yeah. I'm in Clyde already, and now that I am on the other side and I've healed and integrated a lot, I want to see what it's like being in that house again from an integrated place. And that's why I was like, I need to see the house for some reason. I didn't have the language for it that day, but now I just wanted to see what it was like to be in a place on the other side. So that's when I stopped by. You happened to be there last minute. You were like, oh, when do you want to come by and see the house? I'm like, in 5 minutes? Like right now?
Well, I was kind of hoping that you were wanting to do it relatively soon instead of like it be some sort of like, hey, let's put this on the calendar.
Yeah. No, it was like 5 minutes.
Because I didn't have anything for the rest of the day. And I checked with myself too, because I was like, are you sure you're okay with her coming over and seeing your house? And I'm like, yeah, dude. My little internal dialogue, yeah, dude. Like, I'm, after the, you know, meetup that we'd had months before, or maybe a year before at that point.
Yeah, almost a year.
I feel at peace with it. And also, this was a good a screening check for myself in my own healing journey. Like, I'm telling myself that I'm healed from this. Mm-hmm. If I really am, then her coming over is not going to give me any triggers. And I'm not going to go into defense mode, and I'm going to actually be cool, and I'll just be like, hey, you know, let's just hang out. And what ended up happening was you came over, and it was almost like I knew that you'd been in the house before, obviously. But
let me show you around.
Let me show you around. No,
but it might as well have, because it was completely changed.
Oh yeah,
like a lot of different things.
It was a good way for me to know that, like, I really was at a place of peace. Mm-hmm. Like, I told myself and told other people that I was at. So it's kind of like a report card.
Yeah.
You know, or like a final exam. So
yeah. Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was, like, you came over, you wanted to see some of the different rooms. I think I got the impression you really wanted to go to the upper room. Mm-hmm. And because there was a memory of a conversation that we had up there about you and your dad. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, just letting you have that, you know, space to move around and ask questions, and it felt very free. And then we had planted peach trees.
Yeah.
Several years ago, and I finally had peaches for the first time in forever. I didn't think I was ever going to get peaches, and I didn't know what to do with all of them. And so I remember just being like, well, I've got peaches if you'd like some. And of course you were like, yeah, let's...
I know. I was excited about that fruit, and really sad that I had to leave the trees behind. But yeah.
Going outside and just like, the whole time we're having just really deep conversations, and just talking openly about life and the things that were going on in each other's lives, and being excited and like happy for each other for different things, and that felt really good. And I didn't want you to go home. And so then it was kind of like, I was like, I wonder if she just hang out and talk, instead of like, now that the agenda of seeing the house is over with, I want, and I'm just realizing this now in the moment, I wonder if Leilani would be my friend.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so then we sat on the front porch, and I sat in the swing and you sat in the blue chair, and we started talking about things in our relationship and in our marriage. And I remember in the moment thinking, this is stuff that I thought like I would be very defensive about, or like or somewhat accusatory of you for, but I don't feel that at all. Actually, like, if I've hurt her in any way, I just want to apologize, because I'm sorry. And so as you would say different things to me about, like, this, when this happened, this is what I was feeling, and I'm like, okay, well, now I know what she was going through. That's completely different than what I thought it was. I thought she was just being mean to me or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then I'm apologizing for stuff, and then I'm telling you what my experience was like on my end, and you were apologizing for and so, like, there was just so many different moments where, like, I think we were healing our own hearts and each other's hearts in that moment, and putting this, like, you know, very soothing balm on so much stuff. And it was such a, again, just a beautiful experience. And I treasure that. And so when you came back this past year, and so Leilani messaged me, she's like, you got peaches? I'm like, I got a shit ton of peaches.
Millions of peaches.
Come on over. So she came over, and you were gonna, you paid me for the peaches, and I'm like, well, I'll take the money, but like, that's a trip. So but then we're sitting on the porch again, and I have the same thought, like, I just kind of want to keep this conversation going, because I'm enjoying talking with you. And then it, like, made me really reminiscent, like, hey, remember when we used to go on we used to go on walks, like every day to, when you were in the dorms, we did it, and then when we got the house, like we never walked around our neighborhood because it was sketch as fuck, but like we would get in the car and drive to Hardin Simmons and go for like an hour and a half long walk and just like share our day. And like I walk around all the time now. Like it's a thing, and I was walking before you and I got together, but I wasn't doing it consistently. And there's so many different things that, like, I'm the growth farmer, but you planted the seed in me. So regular walking, and that being just like a part of the day. Drinking water.
Yes, as you can see.
So Leilani would tell me all the time, you smell thirsty.
You smell thirsty.
And I'm like, thirst has a scent?
Yes.
What the hell?
It does.
And I was like, well I apparently had really bad breath too. I've corrected that. I smell a whole lot better than I used to.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
so that's something else.
It's the water. Yeah, the breath, the water, all these things.
All these different things.
Walking.
I'm wearing clothing that actually fits me versus, 2 sizes too big because I was so paranoid about wearing smalls.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for you, but you said in one of our previous conversations that, like, if it hadn't been me that you'd married, it would have been the same thing with somebody else. I think that's the same thing that would have happened to me. So if I hadn't proposed to you and you hadn't gotten married to me, I would have married somebody else, but I would have gone through this same sort of dynamic.
Same.
But at the same time, 3 sames in a row, at the same time, like, I'm glad that it was you. Because you have been, and you still are, one of my biggest teachers. Like, there's so many life lessons that you taught me that I will never probably be able to, like, officially say, like, well, I learned this from Leilani. but you were a part of the journey for me through all kinds of different, like, really pivotal moments in my life. And my spiritual awakening happened after you left, and the realization that it was never your fault what happened in my own heart. Like, you were reflecting to me the way that I saw myself. You were like, it was something that I had talked about and I had taught other people, but, like, I didn't have a reference point for myself. But, like, since I didn't love myself, how could you love me in the fullest way? I wanted to marry you. I loved you, but I also wanted to marry you because I felt like this is protection against abandonment. Leilani can't ever abandon me. I'm the greatest man she's ever known. She's told me this a million times. I'm her hero. She's put me on this pedestal. Well, you don't want to be on a pedestal with anybody because you will fall off. And so when I fell off the pedestal that I never really should have been on, but, like, I turned on myself, and I didn't know what love really was. I didn't know how to love myself, and that was the reason why I hurt myself so much. That was the reason why I hurt you so much without even knowing it. That was the reason why I was not the husband that you deserve to have. I'm thankful that now you have that person. And I'm looking forward to getting to know Tim. He seems like such a super awesome guy. And I also never thought I would let these words come out of my mouth. But it's the truth. Like, I love you, Leilani. I think I love you more now than when we were married. And it's not an in-love romance sort of thing. It is an appreciation. It's a soul thing. And, like, you are such a blessing to me.
Oh, that is so awesome. And it echoes back to, like, that first porch conversation where I visited the house, revisited the place. The reason I went to that upper room was when I realized I don't want to be in this marriage. But I don't know. That sounds so bad. Like, how can you be in a marriage for almost, going towards 12 years and then just be done with it? Like, what kind of psychopath are you to feel like you're just done? And I remember talking with my sister, asking her, okay, maybe this is a family thing. Maybe I didn't, who have I learned to love from? Or like, maybe this is like loving a man. I don't know what loving a man looks like. And did my daddy know how to love? So I called my sister. I'm like, do you think daddy ever truly loved someone? She kind of hesitated and was like, he loved in his own way. I'm like, okay, that's not the answer I need right now. Like, okay, that's not enough. I need more right now. How do I love? I don't know. And again, I just felt like I scared myself. I thought, what kind of psychopath you must be? Dave is right. You are a narcissist, which is like a scary word. Scary. It gets thrown around a lot recently.
Did I say that more than once?
A couple times, but it was just starting to become a buzzword too. And it's a very dangerous one because people will throw it from, it's like shoot from the hip with the word narcissist. And it's like, they need to go to therapy for it. But they have to do a lot of tests. It's like calling someone retarded, almost like you're like, don't put that on somebody. That's a medical, whatever. Beside the point. And so I was like, I walked up to the office or to the upper room where your office was, and I'm like, I don't know if I've ever loved. And it just, the horror of it hit me. And I don't even remember falling, but I was on my knees the next minute, just like crying my guts out. Like, it felt like vomiting. I was just like whole full body terrified. Like, what is this? Yeah, mostly just being afraid that I must be some kind of psychopath, because I've been married for almost 12 years and I can't really even say I love Dave, because if I did, then I wouldn't have thought these things and done these things and believed this and still feel this and that. I was so conflicted. I'm like, I don't know how to love men. I can say I love my mom. And that's it. Like, what the fuck? And so, and I, of course, didn't love myself. Like, that's your job, and that's your job. Everybody's job, not mine.
And I had that same sort of thing unconsciously.
Yeah, and it's very common.
And I think, I don't know a lot about all the different things that you do now. A big part of what I do is obviously teaching people to love themselves. But it is that you are your own true love. You are your own best friend. You are your own source. When you place that responsibility on somebody else, it's not only unfair, it's unjust. Because, and it's so much in our culture, not just the religious culture, but our
songs. You hear every song, music, and you're like, movies, everywhere. It seems
every Disney movie fairy tale that we all grew up loving and basing our ideas of what we want our future partner relationship to be based on.
It's the rule.
It's such a codependent sort of thing, and we don't know that, and then we find ourselves, like, I was incredibly codependent. There's still codependency root or things inside of me that I'm still working out, and because those roots are deep, and trying to convince myself that I had already taken care of this, so this shouldn't be a problem anymore. No,
I thought it, therefore
you're going to, like, the core. I thought the core root issue for me was fear of rejection. Fear of rejection is about 3 layers down. Go deeper than that, it's fear of abandonment. Go deeper than that, it's worthiness. And you get down into, like, the real root thing is worthiness and not good enough. And that's true across the board. But when you place the responsibility of somebody else, or you place the responsibility of you believing that to be true based on the way somebody else, and I keep pointing to you because that was the role that I had given you for such a long time.
Likewise.
That was incredibly unfair, and there's no way that you could have ever appeased that.
Yeah. And what's so cool, too, is when you were like, I'm glad you found that husband, and I'm happy for you now. I'm like, Yeah, but like I was my husband first, It was like, yeah, that's great, but that even better is like even besides that, I can be that for myself. And yeah.
So I'm glad you found yourself as that person.
Yeah. So that was kind of like my own little report card. So when I came back to the house and I stood in that spot, I'm like, wow, a lot has happened, because that falling down, crumbling on the knees was 2017. And I mean, it's not really that long ago that happened. I mean, here it is, 2022 at the time. And I can say now, I love. Wow, cool. I think I was there for like 4 hours that day, and was able to finally say, like, from a loving place, because I know the oversharing and telling each other every little thought that came into my mind, which I realize now, don't say everything you think. But this was one of those moments where I'm like, I need to tell Dave these things that I did, so that he doesn't always have to wonder, did this happen or did that not happen? Here's the deal. Here's what happened. It was wrong. I'm sorry. And I never thought I would ever confess any thoughts or actions or any of that. I'm like, I would just go to the grave with it, and it'll always be over my head.
But it wasn't, to me, it wasn't just that you apologized for it. Like,
I got on my knees?
Yes.
I got on my knees.
So, I think this is true for both of us. Uh-huh. Like, we're very sincere people. Mm-hmm. And there's been deceit between the two of us in our history, but so much of that was in that very dark, cloudy place where, like, we didn't know who we were, and we didn't know what love was, and there was, like, so much just,
Yeah.
But coming out on the other side of that, as, like, I believe love does make all things new. So being reborn in a non-religious sort of way, but, like, in a different consciousness sort of way, you're not the person that you were in 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, or even last month. The evolution and getting to sit here today, or really any day, getting to sit here in your house with you and have this conversation, and the honor and joy that it is to be your friend, and to have this very beautiful history with you. Like, it's such a gift, Leilani.
Yeah. It's so cool that this is happening on your birthday. And what's cool about this summer, the first time I came to pick peaches, and we're wrapping up the conversation, and then we're still talking, and then I'm sitting in my car, we're doing the whole driveway, blah, blah, blah.
Driveway moment, yeah.
But it really was like, you had said, I love you, and I was like, I love you too. I love you. And what's weird is I was able to say that in, like, and again, it's a full body, every cell, we are well with our soul. There's my cat. Hey! But yeah, to be able to say that back and it be a full body. And it just, again, another one of those where it just felt clean. It felt very pure to say that.
Well, walking you out to your car, I had the same, it was like, I love this woman. And I have spent most of my life not saying things that I really feel. And one of the things I've been growing into is, in the moment, say what it is that you feel. And not do it because you need anything in return. So I didn't want you, there was no intention.
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, waiting for the,
like,
return.
There was no codependency. There was no need. It was just like, Leilani, I love you. You do whatever the fuck you want to with that.
Yeah.
And for you to say it back to me, and look me in the eye, like, that was such a beautiful moment.
Yep, it was really cool.
Again, I had no plans of reconciling with Dave. It's easy. We didn't have children, so what's the point of ever seeing each other again? And yet, those bizarre experiences of hearing on a podcast about codependency, learning about that book, reading the book, the snowstorm that hit and kind of jolted me into realizing that there were some very good parts of our marriage. Those things changed me. And as much as I hated to admit to myself, because I'm a black and white thinker, I think many of us are, it's like I have to see Dave as all bad in order for me to justify leaving. And anything good that happened has to be thrown away. I can't hold it. I can't receive it. And so if there was any major takeaway for me, and the other being that there's such a thing as codependency and you have it, but here's how you can fix it. It doesn't have to be just something that you carry with you the rest of your life. That's just how you are. And life is always going to be difficult and frustrating and fraught with drama. So again, thank you to everyone who not only watched and commented, but played a role in Dave and I's life in the beginning and middle and end stages. Your love has meant so much to us, and you are a part of our story. And so hopefully next week we will have our normal schedule, and I'll be recapping some major aha moments that I didn't cover in this series. But in the meantime, we'll see you next week.
Dave has this laugh where he goes, ha ha ha, looks at you to recharge the laughter, and then continues like, thank you. There was a lot of laughter in.
And Leilani has this laugh where her face is exploding. And it makes me... You've done it several times. I love your laugh. And there's a...
Don't do that. One thing I used to do a lot with Dave is he has these ears that stick out. So I would thwap. We got to bring the microphone closer. It was just this thwap, thwap. That's so satisfying. Well, thank you so much. Let's hug on camera.
Okay.
Now that there's barely any daylight, so...
Thank you so much for listening. Join us on Instagram at SWUT Podcast. That's SWUTPODCAST for further conversations, insights, and behind-the-scenes content from today's episode. And for the complete viewing experience, tune into Shall We Unpack This on YouTube. We'll see you next week.